All right, let's get straight into the questions. We're talking tax here at the latest in the series of New Age Business Briefings brought to you by the SABC, and today kindly sponsored by Eskom 49M. And we've got Sifiso on table number 3 who's got an interesting question. Sifiso?
Thank you. Good morning, Minister and your team. I think I must start by appreciating the kind of good work you are doing together with your team at the Treasury and the reforms that are coming forward. Most of the time, we lambast you with comments and we never say thank you. I think we must start saying thank you for the resilience in these difficult times we are in as a country, and globally, the markets are not in favor of where we wanted to be. But I just have a question, and perhaps to yourself and Mr. Ramathibela, that says, is it not time now that we consider, tweakering 2 of components that we can use to get us going, one being the exchange controls, and then the second one being the interest rate combined with the tax rates, so that we can enable disposable income to grow in the pockets of consumers, and as a result the economy can start seeing some expenditure growth, and that way the wheels can start turning slowly. So increase the disposable income, lower the tax rates, also maybe send a message requesting the interest rates to come down so that the cost of debt is cheaper and businesses can start working again.
All right, what was your concern about the first bit? I think it was
exchange.
Yes,
the exchange mechanisms and the controls as well. Shouldn't we be looking at lessening the burden of compliance in that area so that there could be this easy movement to a certain level? And I'm not sure what level we should peg that at.
All right, 30 seconds each to if you can contribute to that. Let's start with you, Claire.
Yeah, very, very, very good suggestions, and perhaps maybe they could be practical if they were to be allowed. There are a number of ways of different economies that we've learned across the world that do different things to spur the economic activity within those particular nations. For me, I think that I feel that government does not do enough in terms of having controls over the entirety of the economy. And I'll explain why I say that. Is because SARS is too independent, or the South African Reserve Bank is far too independent. It's very difficult for government to get in and say, how do you actually do that? I mean, if you look at the Fed, for example, and how it works with the rest of the government of the United States, it's quite interesting because all decisions are made from a central point, and that's when Janet Yellen comes out and makes policy. So we need to see more engagement with government and the South African Reserve Bank. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange, for example, is very, very independent, and so it's difficult as well. I mean, till today we know that 94% of the companies that are there are either foreign or white owned. So it's very difficult to then, as governments, say, how do you make sure that we make the best out of what we have? And these companies are conglomerates that are massive and that also earn interest here, and then some of the money just goes. We know about illicit money flows that we hear about. I think last year's estimation, I don't know, Minister, if I'm correct, but 26 billion that was moved, which is unallocated for. So those kind of things, those mechanisms have to be put into implementation. There must be policy from government. I believe strongly that if it was to be made a law that, for example, why isn't JSE implementing BEE? Why is it that JSE doesn't say for every business that lists on the stock exchange, at least 25% of that shareholding must either be black, even as far as 51%? I mean, we've seen countries such as Saudi Arabia, for example, where if you want to do business there, you have to have a local partner, and if you want to list, you have to have somebody who's localized. So the economy of the country is stagnant, not because of the policies that we have. The policies that we have are the best in the world, and it was confirmed last week. So the question is, how do we make sure that these businesses and these independent states are actually implementing what is required for the business and the growth of the country, and we create even more jobs? That, for me, is the most critical part.
Minister, you were nodding when you were talking about getting into the door at the Reserve Bank.
Not really. I'm actually entirely opposed to it, if I were to say so, Clive. Because, there is what they call the impossible trinity. The impossible trinity, the trilemma as they call it, made up of the free capital flow, fixed exchange rate, and sovereign monetary policy. You can't have all three of them in one as a policy mix. So the independence of the bank, of course, it's the independence is in executing the policy that government sets at the end of the day. For instance, our focus this time around is on price stability. And people would say we're targeting inflation. Of course, inflation is the anchor of monetary policy if the other two are not. So a fixed exchange rate and a floating, or a flexible, inflation. Yeah. The two of them also can't coexist if you hold the other one. But the exchange controls have actually been scrapped by completely. We're now focusing on macroprudential rather than actually direct exchange controls as we speak. But we also have a history of having focused on fixing the currency in this country, where we ended up with, because you actually have to use your resources in order to support your currency to keep it at a particular level. When at the advent of democracy, we actually had already accumulated 21 billion rands worth of net open forward position, which we had to deal with over time, which was quite a heavy burden on government. But growth is critical, if I were to say so. Economic growth is at the center of our macroeconomic policy and economic policy in general, because it is that denominator that needs to change. And all other discussions would actually pale into insignificance if we were to be able to
I'm going to push us along because of time, but illicit flows was mentioned. How big is the problem and what can we do about it?
Well, we are advocates of tax morality. Tax morality should be at the core of both the citizens and companies operating in South Africa. And it is at the core of creating wealth for the country. But the illicit financial flows deprive the country and the economy of the necessary resources that we need to. According to the United Nations, OECD, approximately 60 billion United States dollars flow out of Africa. And it is depriving these developing economies of the capacity to become developed economies. So from a SARB perspective, we are narrowing down that gap, we're closing down, and we are saying for companies who are involved in the multinationals in this, what you call base erosion and tax profit shifting, that the time is slowly running out of time because we are putting our resources in that direction.
All right, and then the other thing, Minister, I'm going to ask you, towards the end of your speech, you spoke about financial sector reform, promoting investment, Twin Peaks regulatory system. Is this the kind of thing that's going to stop people like Lewis Group mis-selling loan insurance and stuff like that?
And the Twin Peaks legislation was actually incidentally tabled in Parliament yesterday for further discussion. And the purpose is, one, to separate the two, market conduct and the prudential regulation, which has to do with the soundness of the institutions, but market conduct dealing more with clients getting being treated fairly, being sold the right products, and also putting the onus also on the providers of the products. So that's a key area of trying to give our society a good deal in terms of financial regulation. We're also looking at making sure that the institutions themselves are under strict scrutiny to prevent any systemic challenges that we might encounter.
Okay, last question for you, Commissioner. SAB Miller InBev, has that got a tax implication, and is that a concern, because we might see these kinds of deals come through and we lose billions, I guess?
Well, until we have concrete information how the deal has been structured, We have a team of specialists within SARS that will be looking into this matter. For this moment, I can't comment deeply about this matter. But as soon as we have the details, certainly we as SARS will take appropriate measures in terms of the revenue that we might derive out of it.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, as always, we run out of time very quickly with these, but I just want to thank you very much indeed, the Minister of Finance, the Honourable Nhlanhla Nene, the Commissioner of the South African Revenue Service, Mr. Tom Moyane, Business Analyst Clive Ramathibela Smith. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. And to you at home and our audience here, thank you very much indeed for being part of this very important conversation. Take it on board, read out the statement, the policy statement is online, so read it, go through it. It does affect you and it's important to you, so understand it, ask questions, and make sure that it's internalized in your life. And from us though, have a great day everybody, and have a great weekend, and tonight, go Bokke. Bye everyone.